Welcome back into Buckeye Beat. I'm Noah Weiskopf, joined here as always by Tyler Danburg. Ohio State fresh off a 45-0 dominating victory against Purdue. And Tyler, this really felt like it was Ohio State's best all-around game. To start, defensively, the Buckeyes halted Purdue's running backs to a mere 2.6 yards per carry and only 108 yards through the air, plus 2 turnovers. One, a Lathan Ransom interception, and then felt like the moment when Ohio State's defensive ends, which were once described as antiquated by Nick Saban, really made their presence felt. JT Tuimoloau forced a fumble. The ball was returned by Jack Sawyer for a touchdown. Tyler, what did you see out of this defense?
They were everywhere, and they were responsive. On Purdue's third possession of the game, Noah, they marched 11 plays, 72 yards down the field. Spencer Porath then missed a 21-yard chip shot field goal, and after that, Ohio State allowed just 120 total yards. They contained Hudson Card, and they racked up 4 sacks. That's the 4th time this year they've totaled 4+ sacks in a game.
And before we jump into the offensive side, how about the special teams, right? Jaden Fielding knocked through a 42-yarder early on. Caden Curry blocked a Purdue punt and set up the offense inside the 10. Offensively, the headline here is Jeremiah Smith, right? The rookie 18-year-old broke the last 2 of Chris Carter's freshman records. Now Smith owns the 3 major receiving records for a freshman with the most receptions, yards, and touchdowns through only 9 games. After that, Will Howard called Smith the best receiver in the country. The praise couldn't get much higher for the freshman, but outside of that, there were a lot of things to like from this offense. Even on a day where Emeka Egbuka only had 1 catch, which of course happened to be for a touchdown, the other weapons made their presence felt. Will Howard, 81% completion rate, 260 yards through the air, and 3 touchdowns. Offensive coordinator Chip Kelly jokingly said this week that these noon games could result in more 80% completion games, but added that it's Howard's familiarity that's the biggest difference.
But I think with everything, his knowledge of the game continues to expand, and the more he understands and has a real good feel for what we're doing. You know, Will has a lot of input in terms of what we do game plan-wise.
Tyler, what did you see out of the running backs, especially with them in the receiving game?
Well, Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins are essential in the passing game, whether it's pass catching or in pass protection. It seems like it's every single week where Travion Henderson gets a highlight for his abilities in the pass pro. And then Quinshon Judkins, he caught the decisive touchdown for 9 yards at Penn State. Obviously, Henderson is as good as they come when it comes to pass catching and pass protection running backs. And he also averaged 14.3 yards per catch against Purdue, 3 grabs for 43 yards.
And looking ahead, get this, Tyler, another noon start time this weekend. But the Buckeyes will be on the road for the final time of the regular season. There will be a bit of a twist, though. Ohio State will take on Northwestern, but at a baseball field. Iconic Wrigley Field will be the host for the Big Ten contest. Head coach Ryan Day is excited for the opportunity.
The surrounding area, the restaurants that are in the area, it's just got a great vibe there, right in that neighborhood. It's a very unique place with an unbelievable history, and so it's a great opportunity for us.
It really does feel like the Buckeyes are in an in-between spot right now, in between 2 games that don't necessarily pose a huge threat, and then they play 2 more huge games to end the regular season. But this Northwestern team isn't anything crazy. They're 2-4 in the Big Ten, and they're coming off a bye week, but most recently beat Purdue in overtime.
And they were one of the best stories in college football last year. They went from 1-11 to 8-5, and David Brown really helped propel that team as an interim coach nonetheless. But what stands out about his Wildcats is they get a lot of takeaways. They have 13. They take care of the football. They have a +2 turnover margin, and they have a really good offensive line. You look at Caleb Tiernan. He's their left tackle. He's the 2nd highest graded left tackle in the country, very similar to what Peter Skoronski did for the Wildcats a couple years back. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play, and they're going to need to have really good pass and run protection, and then they're going to have to play their best game on defense to try and compete this weekend.
And Northwestern's leading rusher, Cam Porter, averaging 4 yards a carry through the air. Receivers A.J. Henning, Bryce Kurtz lead the Wildcats through the air with about 420 yards apiece. Let's jump into our predictions. Number 2, Ohio State against Northwestern at Wrigley Field. Ironically enough, both teams are coming off wins against Purdue. This one is not expected to be close. The Buckeyes are favored by nearly 30 points. Given that, I think I'm going to go 42-10 as the final score in Ohio State's favor. What are you thinking here, Tyler?
Well, you said it best, Noah. Ohio State's kind of in a standstill in its schedule. You have Purdue, the Northwestern, bottom of the Big Ten, going into a potential top 5 matchup versus Indiana. But it's the environment that makes this game a little bit, if not a lot tougher. Playing at Wrigley Field, I'm sure, for those who are watching, they've seen how the dimensions are going to play out. It's a very wonky field setup just because you're playing in a baseball stadium, and a lot of the corners of the end zones where you usually see a lot of fade routes and go routes, well, that's smack dab in the middle of some of the fences. So I think that's going to be really crucial for the run game for Ohio State. They out-weaponize Northwestern, and they have a potent offense, but I think the run game is going to be super big for those reasons, not just the dimensions, but they're playing in the Windy City. Wrigleyville is usually pretty windy, especially in the afternoon, so emphasis on Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, and this revamped, jumbled offensive line.
And Ryan Day did say this week they don't normally do it, but the team will be there on Friday to sort of get a feel for what it looks like in a baseball field and see, what the dimensions are so they can see that in person before they step foot on the field on Saturday. Well, that's going to do it for another episode of Buckeye Beat. We'll see you from Wrigley Field for the first time in Ohio State football program history. For Tyler Danburg, I'm Noah Weiskopf. Have a great weekend.